Okay, we've got a lot of material to cover, so I think I'm going to get started here. I'd like to thank everyone for coming this evening. I really appreciate it. And I'd like to thank all the residents that came to the public meeting that we held in the council chamber last week. It was invaluable. This development has a very unique and interesting history. They applied for an official plan amendment over 2 years ago. 2 years is an awfully long time for an official plan amendment, but the problem they were having with it really boiled down to heritage. The Metro store was originally a Steinberg store, and the Heritage Department had decided to list it as a valuable heritage resource. And that delayed the application considerably. I found out about 3 weeks ago that Metro's lease was going to be expiring on May 31st. And I thought, there's no way that I want to lose this grocery store. My wife and I shop here. We've been shopping here for years. And typically what happens when you lose a grocery store in a mall goes into pretty rapid decline. So I immediately had to get the clock going, because my understanding from the information I had is that there was an extension in the lease that if they have site plan approval for this redevelopment by September 30th, then Metro would have to stay. And so I immediately took it to the public meeting where we made no decisions. We took comment from the public, which is what we will be doing again this evening. And that started the clock ticking. Since then, Metro has now phoned Mr. Aza and said they would like to sit down and talk about a lease extension. So I think that's a good thing. But the bottom line is, if we want to keep a grocery store in Applewood Mall and we want to keep the mall vibrant, we need to shop there. That's really what we need to do. I mean, I'm like the rest of you. I probably shop at 7 or 8 different places. But you know, we do shop at the Metro, and I love going to the Portuguese deli and the pet store and the Shoppers Drug Mart. And I would hate to see that. I would hate to see this mall close. So I'm firmly committed to getting this site plan approval through by September 30th. And after the public meeting that we had, there's a couple more seats down here if you people would like to see, if you don't feel comfortable standing. Sorry, we put out every chair they had, so this is a great turnout. Thank you again. So then what happened after the public meeting? I had a very frank discussion with the proponent and said, if we're going to get the site plan approval, then we need to address a lot of the issues that I have, and a lot of concerns I have, and a lot of the concerns that the community has voiced. So we're going to be doing a presentation, and I've got to give them all the credit in the world. If you look at these drawings, I think they've addressed pretty much every detail that I asked them to. They've taken the 2 freestanding buildings off the table with the drive-through, so they're now gone. There's going to be a second walkway from the back of the plaza through, and you can go and look at it. It looks fantastic. There's going to be garbage enclosures at the back of the plaza, so the plaza really is going to get a terrific new facelift. And the thing that I always found when I was shopping there is that the strip right in front of all the stores is almost like a mini drag strip. You know, people just kind of race through there. And I think if you look at the proposal that they have now, they've kind of offset the road a little bit, and they put 2 speed humps in it as well. So I think it's going to be pretty much impossible for anybody to act like a dragster through that section. So I'm pretty excited about this. I think they've done a really good job in an incredibly short time, but we've got a lot more work to do if we're going to get this done by September 30th. And the other thing I would like to say as well is that as we go through the site plan process over the course of the summer, what I would ask of the community, or members of the community, I would like to set up a community focus group so that we can, and I'll need 20 or 30 people, so just think about this during the meeting if you'd like to volunteer. I'd like to have people from the community, from people that live around the mall, hopefully somebody who is a tenant in the mall, somebody from the Residents Association, and then other people in the community, so that we can give the community all of the information that we can possibly give them in a timely manner. And the other issue that I just wanted to speak to you about briefly is West Acres Pool. West Acres Pool, as you know, was not rebuilt when our other pools were rebuilt, and I was very concerned about that. I asked for a staff report on it, and it was $1.16 million to just kind of stabilize the pool. And when I asked when it was going to be included in the long-term capital forecast, it wasn't in until after 2018, and I didn't think that was really acceptable. So I took a motion to council January 25th last year when we were doing our budget deliberations that the discussion on replacement of West Acres pool, it's going to be about $4.5 million. That's what the other pools cost, $4.5 million. To have that included in the budget deliberation discussions for 2013. So that means we're going to have a little bit of work to do to convince the rest of the council that we really shouldn't treat Applewood any different than we should treat any of the other pools. So I'm going to need help on that, and I think if you'd like to volunteer to sit on that committee, I think it's going to be very informative, and I think it'll be a lot of fun, and I think we can get some great work done for the community. So I'm going to ask Yuri to come up. He's going to walk you. He can come up here. He's going to walk you through some of the drawings, and then we'll take. Then I guess we'll take questions. We have lots of staff here, of course. My usual motley crew, and so we'll be able to answer any questions or concerns. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm not a very good public speaker, but however, what I did, I prepared the drawings that you have an opportunity to see. We're going to bring board by board out here so you can have a good view of what we are proposing. I only can tell you that on 28th, the first time, on 28th of May was the first time that we met the public. First time that we heard the public response or public comments with regard to the plaza. First time. 2 years we worked with the city staff, and everything was bogged down with the historical building of the Metro building. I don't think that it was your concern, but that was their city concern. So we really got bogged down for 2 years. I'm doing a lot of zoning bylaw, preparation of plans for zoning bylaw, presentation for board hearing, and so on and so forth. So I was recruited to prepare the boards that we have right now here in front of you. And we literally have done it in 48 hours. So now with the response time to A, we listen, and B, we prepared issue by issue that was raised. And I'm going to, maybe Jeff, maybe you can read the issues that were raised and how we address each one. They're one by one here.
After the meeting on Monday the 28th, we took it upon ourselves to make a list. I was listening to all of you and writing diligently in my notebook. And so we identified the following major concerns. People had concerns over the intensification of the site, particularly the 2 freestanding buildings, which Jim has already spoken to. And those have since been taken off of the plan. There was also concern over the, we'll say, the equity, the distribution of barrier-free or disabled parking. And so you'll see in some of the revised drawings that we prepared, that has been addressed as well, to create more equity for those with limited mobility or disabilities. There was also a lot made of the rear of the plaza, and we'd like to show you how through the site plan process, that being the detailed drawing review, we can really address some of the unsightly matters behind the plaza. There was also concerns with pedestrian connectivity, creating walkways both in light of parking that was being proposed behind the plaza, as well as connectivity of the existing walkways, which we're going to retain to the existing neighborhood.
Talk right here for a second. That was the board that we prepared on the 28th, as you can see. It shows the existing plaza in gray. It shows the Metro store, the new Metro store, proposed new Metro store here with TD Bank, with the 2 freestanding buildings. So this is where we were on the 28th. Can you bring the other one, Jeff? Over there. So we took your recommendations, took your suggestions and your ideas, and what we're presenting today to you for your consideration. 2 restaurants were removed, as you can see, and we highlight and render the entire plaza the way that it's going to be constructed and renovated. Thank you, Jeff. Maybe we can bring the other boards one by one, issue by issue. Thank you. There were a lot of concerns about parking for disabled in relationship to the Shopper Drug Mart as well as some of the doctor's offices. So specifically we address it, and I don't believe in speeches, I believe in drawing. I got stuck right there. So here it is. In fact, Jeff, maybe you can show them as to what we did with regard to the parking lot. Yeah, it's right there. Yeah, thank you. So as you can see, here the Shopper Drug Mart. We reversed the parking lot with you. Right next to the Shopper Drug Mart shows disabled parking and no parking at the front. Existing, proposed. This is in front of same place, in front of Shopper Drug Mart, before and after. Thank you. The next issue, Jeff, was the issue related to the garbage and containers at the back. Mr. Sweeney was kind enough to show us wonderful photos as to how ugly the plaza was. So, here it is. It's easy to show how beautiful the plaza could be if we would work together. So it took us literally 24 hours to take it from here to there. So I think, again, no explanation required. The other issue was landscaping throughout the plaza. Yeah, you can take this one, Jeff. That's one. This was a very interesting issue. As you know, we have a bridge that was built at millions of dollars, or at least hundreds of thousands of dollars years ago, across the QEW. Well, here it is. It's right here. It leads to this side of the plaza from the other side, from this side of the road to this side, terminate with no sidewalk. That's not on our property, it is on city property. So we are asking the city to build a sidewalk, safe sidewalk for those who cross the highway from one side to another one. So that is it. Again, we are showing it very clearly, as you can see, without sidewalk and with a sidewalk. Very simple. Feel yourself, come and have a look at it. So we're showing the existing condition and the proposed. We're showing here the existing condition along North Service Road as to what it is and what we are proposing to add national trees. Again, this plaza could be a magnificent place as we're demonstrating. Thank you, Jeff. Yes. It was good points. Remember, this plaza was built in the 50s. The 50s, people didn't think too much about space. A lot of the parking lot, a lot of space was built behind the plaza, but we don't do it today. Today, when we build plaza, all the parking at the front, safe, and so on and so forth. However, we have to deal with the reality. So not only that we show you before what we're going to do, but we're taking one store and punching drive. It's exactly what's going to be here, where the custodian's office, we're going to link it right to the front. So again, safe, as you can see. Okay, that's one. The second connection, we're simply enhancing with some landscaping and very pleasant walk through these from one side to another side. Thank you. Yeah, again, this is interesting. I was talking to Mr. Sweeney about photos and how ugly he made that plaza look. It took me 2 seconds to find some good features. We have to look at the good and the bad. What we're saying is there are still some good places in this plaza. And I found a lot of people who were sitting here the other day, 2 days ago when I came to take these photos. So we believe that everything could look like this. And a nice place to shop and entertain. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. I was wondering if I could get John Hardcastle, he's planner from the city of Mississauga. I just wanted him to give everybody, because when we had the first public meeting, it was a little bit of confusion as to what actually is an official plan application and what is site plan. A lot of the questions we were getting were actually dealing with site plan issues, not with official plan issues. So I wanted John to just kind of give everybody an overview as to how they do differ. There still will be some issues I'm quite sure that we're going to have to work out through the site plan application, but those are site plan issues. So John, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tovey.
Please speak into the mic.
That happens all the time.
Applewood presently has in process 3 separate different development applications with the city. These applications include an application for official plan amendment, rezoning, and site plan approval. Those applications for official plan amendment and rezoning are public processes which require community consultation and council approval. The authority for site plan approval in the City of Mississauga is delegated to the Commissioner of Planning and Building and has no community consultation requirements under the Planning Act. So first I'd like to talk a little bit about the official plan amendment process. And I'm just going to highlight some of the application requirements while I'm speaking to it as well. So presently the lands have 2 official plan designations on them. The bulk of the shopping plaza is designated with a general retail commercial designation, and the portion of the plaza which Autotex is at has a motor vehicle commercial designation. The proponent proposes to harmonize the land use designation under the general retail commercial designation. To do so, the land use designation of the portion of the property where Autotex is would change from motor vehicle commercial to general retail commercial. That would mean that motor vehicle commercial uses, which are auto repair facilities, gas stations, car washes, and the like, would no longer be permitted on any portion of the property. So that's the application in a nutshell for official plan amendment. So what is an official plan? An official plan is a long-term visionary document which has a 20 to 25-year time horizon. It sets out policies on how land within the city, over the whole of the city, should be used. The official plan is prepared by staff and approved by council with community involvement, and it sets in place the rules and guiding vision on how the needs of the community will be met over the long term. Official plans deal with where different land uses will be located, where services will be needed to meet the needs of the people, and where these services will be required. It also deals with how and where growth will be accommodated in the long term. So why do we need an official plan? In addition to setting the long-term vision, the official plan outlines general land use, planning goals, objectives, policies necessary to achieve the city's long-term vision. It helps to coordinate pressures and the needs of the community, and it directs where land uses and supporting services will be located. It sets a framework for establishing detailed land use regulations, things like zoning bylaws, which tell us specifically how to deal with individual parcels of land. And it provides us with a framework for evaluating land use changes and settling conflicts between different types of land uses which may not coexist side by side harmoniously. So now we have an application for a rezoning, which is running hand in hand with the official plan amendment application. And much like the official plan amendment, the Applewood site presently has 2 separate zone categories. The bulk of the site, where the plaza is located, is under a neighborhood commercial zone category, what we refer to as a C2 zone. The portion of the site where Autotex is located has a motor vehicle commercial zone category, or a C5 zone category. The proposal is to harmonize the site under the C2 zone category, or neighborhood commercial, including a few new zone provisions which differ from the base zoning. Specifically, they're asking for a reduction in the parking standard. They propose to provide parking at a rate of 4.26 spaces per 100 square meters of gross floor area. Under normal circumstances, they would be required to provide 5.4 spaces for the same area. They're proposing to permit restaurant uses within 24 meters of the existing residential uses, whereas 60 meters is normally required. And they're proposing to permit a reduced landscape buffer width of 2.38 meters. 4.5 is normally required. So what's a zoning bylaw? The zoning bylaw controls the use of land by identifying specific standards for development which deal with things like how buildings or land may be used, where buildings may be located, setbacks from property lines, building types and lot sizes, dimensions, parking requirements, and building heights. So why do we need a zoning bylaw? The zoning bylaw implements the objectives and policies of the official plan. For example, an official plan may contain a broad general policy direction like buildings shall be located close to a property line, whereas a zoning bylaw will implement that by putting in specific provisions. It must be located between 0 meters and 3 meters from the front property line. The zoning bylaw also provides a legal way of managing land use and future development. In addition to the official plan, a bylaw protects you from conflicting and possibly dangerous land uses within your community. For example, locating industrial uses away from residential and mandating minimum distance separations for certain uses. How are zoning bylaw amendments evaluated? An application for rezoning is evaluated against criteria such as conformity with the official plan and compatibility with adjacent land uses. Suitability of the land for the proposed purpose, including size and shape of the lots. Adequacy of vehicle access, services such as water supply, sewage, etc., and evaluates against things like flood risk. Then we have an application for site plan approval. And Mr. Salmona and Mr. Kenny have gone through the details of where they're going with their site plan application, so I won't go over that again. But this third application that's being sought, it's recently been submitted to the city. We've not yet completed our review of it, so I can't speak from an informed perspective with the feedback from the variety of departments and agencies that we have looking at it. But I assure you that concerns with regard to vehicle and pedestrian movements are key in our considerations of reviewing the application for approval. So site plan controls are used to ensure that developments are built and maintained in the way that they're approved. So we use approval drawings, agreements, in order to ensure that the building gets built as shown on the drawings and that it stays that way, and if there are changes proposed to it, that they go through a similar process to accommodate those changes. New developments need to meet certain standards for quality and appearance, that there is safe and easy access for pedestrians and vehicles, the appearance and design features of buildings and their sustainable design are satisfactory and meet standards established by the municipality, and that there is adequate landscaping, parking, and drainage. And last but not least is that nearby properties are protected from incompatible development by use of things like landscape setbacks, fencing, and landscape treatments. That generally covers the three application processes that we have, the evaluative criteria, and what we look at as the approval authority. If you have any questions, I'd be pleased to answer them at this point.
I got one. Is there a chance they'll ever put a high rise in there? I mean, the way it is now, it's going to be a plaza. Can you foresee 15 years from now where somebody slaps a huge condo in there?
Well, I don't have a crystal ball, but the official plan for the city says that this is a retail general commercial area which does not permit residential uses in high-rise buildings. So under this official plan designation and the corresponding zoning, no, they could not do this. That does not prevent them from making application at some point in the future. And if they were to do so, we'd be into a public process like we are today, where members of the community would have an opportunity to come out, voice their concerns, and it would be evaluated against the criteria that are contained within the city's official plan.
Guns allowed?
There was a gentleman who was here, I think.
Is there any consideration taken to make use of traffic through the neighborhood and along Dixie Road? I understand somebody mentioned to me that the Dixie Road exit is going to be redesigned. Is that being taken into consideration and the congestion through the neighborhood as we try to further?
Steve, do you want to handle that?
So your questions pertain to the Dixie Road interchange, number one, and then traffic? Okay, we have asked our operations people to look at it. I think you raised those concerns at the meeting last Monday, so they are under review now. In terms of the Dixie Road interchange, the MTO has just commenced an environmental assessment for the QEW between Councillor Road and Evans Avenue, so that interchange will be reviewed under this environmental assessment. It will probably take about 2 years to complete. The city will be involved as a working partner. We will provide comments throughout the environmental assessment, and hopefully we can, if there's concerns that people have, we'll be able to have those concerns addressed by the minister. Does that help? Okay, I can't tell you any other details at this time, but...
My question is, what are you guys going to do about the traffic through the neighborhood? That's great, but what are you going to do about the increased traffic through the neighborhood?
Well, a lot of the traffic through the neighborhood is locally generated. A lot of the traffic is... Yeah, it is. No, it is. There's 12... If I'm not... And there certainly is some traffic infiltration. There's no doubt about that. Well, I think at this time, John has said the only thing that's happening is the Metro store. So they're going to refurbish or enlarge the Metro store. That's the only change that's going to take place at this time.
I think this lady was up first.
Do you have any concerns about the reduction in parking? If I heard you correctly, there's going to be one parking space less for every, is it 100 square feet?
100 square meters, approximately 1,000 square feet. So it's about a 20% reduction in parking. They have provided what is referred to as a parking justification report, which typically looks at the parking demand that's generated by the plaza today, looks at similar circumstances in other facilities to determine what the peak demand would be for parking on the site. We have that report in. Our technical people are reviewing it right now, and it will be considered ultimately when we make recommendations to Planning and Development Committee and ultimately Council. It will be considered.
Okay, I think everyone here will agree that since the bank went in, there's been a shift in the traffic pattern, and also, of course, the bank takes up a fair chunk of parking space. So there's been a big change. I know every time I go there, I have to drive up and down and around to find a place to park. So already we're noticing a change. Yeah. With more people coming to Metro, I would think we'd notice even more of a change.
Yes, and I think that is expected. And we are, as part of the rezoning process, we're looking at the parking supply and demand. As part of the site plan, what we're hoping to do is we're hoping to achieve a better site layout that better directs traffic through the site, both in terms of pedestrian and vehicular movements. So getting connections for pedestrians that are well defined and separated from the vehicles, from North Service Road up to the plaza. And I think that some of the plans that Mr. Kenny and Mr. Salmona showed do a much better job than earlier iterations in showing some of the connections both from the outside to the plaza and also within the plaza parking area. And that will be a significant component of our review under the site plan application, making sure it works and works well based upon the demands that are within the facility. So it is a consideration, certainly.
Before I sit down, I would just like to say, Mr. Salmona, you said you were not a very good public speaker, and I think you did very well.
Good for you. He did a good job.
Hi, John. Name's John Walmark, resident in the area for 16 years here in Applewood Acres, now live in Orchard Heights. Thank you again very much, actually to Andre Lill for putting pressure on our councillor to get this done tonight. This question is directed to Mr. Tovey. Since your June 11 info fair that you had here last June, actually was here at St. Edmunds, you said that the majority of the residents who were in attendance at the time, about 200, plus showed their support, including supporting emails you received on the proposed reno of Applewood Plaza. You've been meeting with the proponent since 2011. On the basis of that support, you said you received without any community meeting or dialogue with the Applewood homeowners until this evening. 100 plus very disappointed residents at City Hall last week, and we finally got a meeting here tonight. Thank you again, Andre Lill. These supporting emails you said you used to negotiate with the proponent, these were not part of the report last week at Planning and Building. Will they be part of the report going forward?
That's an interesting question. And actually, to be honest with you, I'm going to have to ask legal about that because there are emails that were sent to me. But what I will say, and I think I've already explained that I found out 3 weeks ago that the lease was expiring on May 31st. And I immediately took a motion to council to get rid of the encumbrance of the heritage designation so that we could move forward into site plan. Then I immediately moved to the mandatory public meeting where we make no decisions, and I've made this very clear.
That was not a public meeting, Councillor Tovey. That was a planning and building meeting at City Hall.
That was a
Andre Lill, your president, asked you a year ago, you assured him before anything went to council at all, there would be a community meeting like you have here. Not your information fair where people are walking around. Now, look at the turnout you have here now. This is a plaza I worked in as a kid. I worked in 2 locations there. My wife and I were at dinner there tonight. We shop in the plaza. So we all are committed to this plaza. We want to make the plaza better. Why would you not take the time in this past year and have any dialogue with the president of this homeowners association, or talk to the community, which you have not? I guess that's my concern with you as councillor. I'm glad you finally had a meeting, talk about this issue, and I think we need to talk about the plaza. My big concern about the plaza, you can deal with the email issue and the support you said you had. My concern is not so much the Metro store, and I think we all need a store in the plaza. But I don't know if we need a mega store open 24 hours a day. I don't think Applewood needs that.
Yeah, I'm not going to bother responding to that, Mr. Walmark. I think your views are well known, and your feelings toward me are well known. All I can say is I'm very privileged to be the councillor in Ward 1. I take my job very, very seriously, and all I like for people to do and what they have done in the other areas of the ward is just to get to know me as a person and to work with me. I want to put together a community group here in Applewood. We've done this in Cumberland, we've done it in Lakeview, we've done it in Port Credit. We've done some wonderful, wonderful work. My staff's done some wonderful work. Council supported us on a lot of great initiatives. And that's really all I'm asking of this community.
I was just wondering about the rezoning. So I did have a question for you, sir. And I wonder, do we need, I don't know how many square foot the Metro is going to be. That's not my issue. My issue is the garage, the auto tax, who has been, very community-minded. They have barbecues, they have plant sales, they have all sorts of things. I think probably charge-free. And I just wondered why the auto tech was eliminated in your zoning?
Well, as working for the city...
There's many of us that go there, so we're going to have to go further.
Working for the city of Mississauga, we're the approval authority. We have been approached with a request to change the official plan and zoning on the property to accommodate this. The origin of this lies with the property owner. We are being asked to consider this. So is this a question you'd like to have the Mr. Summerlin and Mr. McKinney respond to?
Yes, please.
Yes.
This guy's the star of the show right here. I really like him. If he runs for office, I'd vote for him. This guy's great.
Well, I've been going around here a long time.
Really, it's the wish of the plaza and the owners of this plaza. Usually, automotive and plaza do not mix together. It's very clearly the store has to be bigger in order to be profitable. Needless to say, you all know very well that Walmart is building a big store not too far from there. So it really is very, very tough for the landlord to keep this store there. So again, in order for them, they did the calculation, in order for them to stay in business, they have to grow from the present footprint of the plaza to the footprint they're showing around. What's that, about 35,000 or 35,000 square feet? It's as simple as that. Automotive and plaza do not get along.
Absent landowners or absent plaza owners who've been in BC or other parts of Canada for the length of time I've been here. But I guess my point is 2 retail stores are now not going to be included in the planning, is that right?
That's correct.
And so that's just going to go to parking?
Yes. The plaza.
What is it?
Can you put the drawing up, please, Jeff? The drawing that we are proposing. You know, we adjusted the plans after the last meeting. Okay, we had planned before the 28th, and this is what we are presenting for you. This is the direction that we got from the owners to present to you. This is, just so you understand, this is TD Bank. This is the proposed metro. The automotive is somewhere in here, presently. So this is the supermarket. This is TD Bank, and that's the plaza, the way that it is, with the renovation and additional landscape work.
Yeah, why not?
I guess you have, I'm not going to get an answer except that the landlords want to change it.
That's correct.
Can you leave that schematic, can you leave that down there for future questions?
Thank you. Okay, my name is Mr. Sweeney. I was here at the last meeting, and my good friend Roberto spoke to me tonight before the meeting to mention the wonderful drawings that he's come up with. Thank you. You did them within 48 hours. That was excellent. Okay, first thing would be Mr. Tovey. Thank you for holding this meeting. We should have had this meeting a long time ago. And actually, I appreciate you sending out a memo to everybody in the area, but unfortunately, Applewood Mall revitalization proposal. Applewood Mall is in Wisconsin, USA. It's Applewood Plaza. Just want to verify the fact I'm in the right place. Okay, going back to Mr. Hardcastle. Mr. Hardcastle, you mentioned regarding the motor vehicle commercial. Now, when you took away motor vehicle commercial, does that now cover the drive-through that happened in TD Bank according to motor vehicle planning and designation policy?
Drive-through facilities are permitted in some circumstances associated with permitted commercial use, such as a bank, which is a permitted use within this zone category.
But it's still classified under motor commercial?
In some circumstances, it It's basically in both zone categories in some cases. Motor vehicle commercial really is intended to speak to the nature of the commercial facilities. So you get a car wash, you get a gas station, you get a repair facility. There are commercial facilities that are generally oriented towards the motoring public, if you will. Whereas a bank serves another purpose and as a convenience or an accessory use, they offer a drive-through facility.
Yeah. Okay, now regarding the parking at the rear of the plaza, it's still remaining the same with the trucks going back and forward? Yeah, so you can park your car at the back and we can still have the vehicles coming in. Now the other thing is, according to this, you're coming in at Stanfield Road. Trucks are coming in at Stanfield Road?
That's correct.
Well, Stanfield Road is signs up as the no trucks. So does the bylaw have to be changed for that?
The question was heavy truck prohibitions on Stanfield Road. I think it applies to the service road as well.
Yeah.
Intent of the prohibitions is to stop through traffic. There is an exemption in the bylaw that allows deliveries the same way you can have a delivery to your house. Trucks are not permitted on your street other than for deliveries. The same thing would apply to that portion of Stanfield or the service road.
So actually you can, actually with these signs up, they're a waste of time actually.
No, the signs stop through truck traffic.
Yeah, through truck.
But deliveries are permitted.
Oh, I see, okay. Actually, Mr. Hardcastle, regarding you mentioned there was 2 years that Heritage held back this proposal. It was 2 years. That's what
the application was submitted sometime early in 2010. And so, yes, it's been 2 years.
So it's taken 2 years for it to go through your department?
Well, no, we're not the only department that deals with it. There are a multitude of departments within the city as well as external agencies, the Region of Peel, the MTO, because of its proximity to the service road and the QE. Yeah, that's correct, CBC. So there's a broad range of people who deal with things, and quite often we'll find an application takes a long time in the beginning stages, particularly if there are issues, because we're coordinating amongst a wide group of people who are commenting on it, and then we can narrow things down, and hopefully the back end of the process moves a little bit more efficiently than the front end.
Okay, and the other point is regarding the raised walkway. Have we come up with an answer on the raised walkway where the trucks are coming in and out?
Jeff Kenny will respond.
So my name is Jeff Kenny. Many of you have probably seen me at the meeting before, and we did have an information fair here, I guess almost a year ago today. I'm the planner as well, and I'm the main point of contact between my firm and Mr. Hardcastle at the City of Mississauga, as well as a go-between the landlord and the city. The raised walkway, an explanation of the walkway can't be given, I guess, without discussing some of the transportation-related concerns that the city had with respect to the application. As you're well aware, and as I'm well aware, because I just visited the Metro prior to coming here, you currently have a very wide entrance just south of the auto tax, and we're showing that on our proposal to be closed. This was an item that the city asked us to do because of the proximity of that entrance and exit to the corner of Stanfield Road. Excuse me, it's actually quite chaotic as I was trying to come out of the plaza. I had a little bit of difficulty myself. So the city requested that we actually close that off in favor of aligning a new access with Russet Road, and that is what you see here. Now, in conjunction with that, and this speaks to some of the items that John had brought up as well, pedestrian connectivity is a major concern of the city. Yeah, that's great, thank you. So as you're well aware, there is a pedestrian connection right here, and that links to the neighborhood to the east, McIntosh Crescent and Russet Road. And the idea of providing a raised walkway or something that would sort of separate pedestrians from the larger vehicular circulation area was actually twofold. One, the first that I said, is to maintain that pedestrian connection, but also to limit trucks or make it more difficult for trucks to go behind the plaza, which also speaks to some of the safety concerns that you had. So I can't point you to a local example where we've done this, We have done it at several schools in Oakville that we've designed for all the Catholic and Hull Public District School Board. And it can be quite effective in limiting speed through the site, as well as deterring larger, more intrusive vehicles from going places that we don't want them to go. So this would be something with a concrete apron on the edges, maybe then unit pavers or something more decorative to both guide pedestrians out of the site, maintain that connection, but also to discourage trucks from coming behind the plaza as well.
The trucks still have to go by that, right? So it's actually a speed bump.
It is like a glorified speed bump.
Glorified speed bump.
And we conducted transportation analysis of movements which show that trucks can navigate this area. And so again, it all stemmed from a compromise with T&W earlier in the application process.
The other point was where you had Shoppers Drug Mart, you're only given us 2 handicap spots, or disabled spots. Well, at the moment there's 4. There's 4 already at the doctor's office, and there's another 4 further back at the medical park. So you've given them all to Metro, actually.
Well, no problem. We can adjust to wherever people want to.
Yeah.
But we'll go through that site plan application.
So when can we suggest this?
Yeah.
We're listening now.
Yeah. So you'll add on some more disabled parking in the front.
Certainly, I believe that the bylaw requires, is it 16 or 13? I don't have.
The bylaw for disabled parking.
It's on our basis, depending upon how much. I actually have it in my application there. I'll confirm that to you shortly. But certainly we will improve the equity of handicapped disabled parking throughout the site. Our first submission for site plan does show them dedicated to Metro, but we will certainly heed the requests of residents and improve the equity of barrier-free parking throughout the site.
And back to that question, the lady was asking. Lady back there has a question. Did you store at the post office?
Yeah.
The post office. That's what she's asking. Where's the post office going?
It's in the variety store.
The post office in the variety store, right beside the Metro, in the existing mall.
I don't know who I'm supposed to direct my question to. I'm sorry. I'm Doreen Casey. I live on the North Service Road. You can imagine going out of the plaza, going forward through a driveway. We live and have to back out onto the North Service Road. Has anybody taken into consideration the traffic flow that's going to change and what the residents, because we're restricted as to what our driveways can look like and how much space we have getting in and out of the driveway? I know that there's a lot of people that have asked for circular driveways and they've had to get special permission from the city in order to get them because it's not usually allowed by the city to have a circular driveway in the front of our houses. So, I mean, I know you're doing all this planning and you're deciding on what's going where, but has anybody taken any kind of a view of what is happening on this service road? We don't have a 4-way street. We have 3 lanes, which is very confusing 90% of the time for people that don't live in the neighborhood. Even today, standing in front of my house as I was cutting the lawn, I seen somebody driving on the wrong side of the road. It happened to be one of the workers that was working on one of the houses in the back, and he was going the wrong way down the street. Because it's confusing, there's 3 lanes.
I understand your concern, certainly. And I will say that...
No, go ahead.
I don't want to cut you off, I'm sorry.
No.
We are made to submit a traffic impact study, and that traffic impact study is scoped to deal with the site as well as the intersections or main intersections in close proximity to the site. So the main focus of our traffic impact study and analysis is the function of the site with respect to Stanfield, Inslee Road, and the accesses of the site. So I'm sorry, I don't have an answer to your question with respect to...
Is it North Service Road?
I don't have an answer to your question with respect to traffic all throughout North Service Road.
From Dixie to Plaza, like going from the highway to the plaza. That's the, the only access from Dixie Road. What happens to the 2 blocks of people that are there? We can't get out of the driveways. You can't get out of the driveway in order to pull onto the road, and you're going forward.
During peak periods, the service road is busy. Obviously, the busier the QEW is, or if there's a collision on the QEW, people hop off and they take the service road.
Not just when then. They drive like 80, 90 kilometers an hour down the service road. Anytime.
I've noticed that there are families on the service road. There are families on the service road who have built hammerheads in their driveways, which allow them to turn around and pull out front rather than reversing. There's several, I think, that I've seen along the service road. That's an option for you. It's not the easiest. I mean, I'll grant that. There's not much we can do. It's a public road. People are allowed to use the road. You can't prohibit people from using the service road. It provides access to the neighborhood, to the plazas. It's also used, no doubt, by people who get off the QEW, as I indicated, but they are public roadways.
So a hammerhead driveway is okay without getting approval by the city? No.
I think there is an approval process, John, for that, if I'm not mistaken. There are some that are in effect, so I'm assuming either people did get a permit or they've done it illegally. Personally, I would do it because of it. It's called safety.
Yeah,
right down
it's
to
called our lives, yeah.
In terms of the driveway and the use of a hammerhead, there are zoning restrictions in some zone categories that deal with how wide your driveway can be and how you could configure a hammerhead on your property. I'll give you my business card. If you give me a call, I'll work through and find out what restrictions deal with your property and try to assist you in that regard. Okay? Very much.
My question is, with planning application, why are all the appendices not attached on the public website so we can view them? I sent a request in writing for the site assessments, and I was told that I have to come to City Hall to view them. So I'm wondering why you can't just PDF them all and put them on the website and part of the planning meeting.
You're referring to the environmental site assessment reports?
Yes, phase 1s and 2s, as well as a traffic study. It would have been nice to see the whole submission versus the 20-page that was posted.
In terms of third-party professional reports, at the time that this application was submitted, we did not have an opportunity to be able to reproduce and show those third-party reports. There are individual restrictions based upon the professional legislation that governs each of the individual professionals that might be preparing the reports, as well as copyright law that prohibits certain reproductions. There have been changes to the legislation and to the process. However, this application was received under previous regulations, and it's not available here. Any new applications that the city would receive, they will be available, and we can reproduce them at your request.
So you can't even, if you send a request in writing, like other government agencies, if you send a request in writing, you're not allowed to forward it to you, even if you pay for it. We get requests daily for 12,000 emails. So I know if you send a request in writing and you're willing to pay.
The easiest way in a situation like this is to make your request directly to the applicant or to the author who prepared the report and get the reproduction done that way.
Okay, I have a feeling that the consultant that prepared the report no longer works there, but anyways, that's a whole other point. Thanks.
My name is Carol Chamberlain. I live at 1098 Henry Road, which backs directly onto the mall, which I bought that property 19 years ago because of privacy. And I thought, and I have to clarify this, I thought the parking was put at the back of the mall because of the 2 freestanding buildings. Now I see you're going to make it more convenient to people to park back there. I want to know what you're going to do for the property owners behind the mall, because right now it's wide open. And you know, I don't mind the delivery trucks back there, it doesn't bother me, it's during the daytime. I'm retired now, I still don't care. I was a delivery person myself for 35 years. What you're proposing is totally unrealistic. I don't know if any of you have ever worked on the field before, if you know what delivery is all about, but I really sympathize with the guys. If you're going to start putting those nice little boxes around, like you're making it a real pain for them to do their job on a regular basis. It makes no sense by putting a barrier. Right now they go one way through the mall and they're out. You're asking them to turn around and go back, so now they're twice. A lighting situation, I don't know about speed bumps, I didn't get that close. But what are you going to do with lighting? Are they going to be the low lights so it's not bothering us? And as you know, California's is in the mall. I believe the hours are 2 a.m. So now they're going to park at the back of the mall. Like right now, we have nothing back there after, say, 6 o'clock, if that's the day's delivery. So now you're having people parking back there with their headlights in our backyards. I mean, we don't really, I don't appreciate it. I don't know who's here that lives on Henley, but I'd just like to hear what you have to say about that.
The request for the parking in the rear is made by the property owner. There are certain requirements that the city typically looks to put in place, but this is a recently revised proposal, so I'm going to let Mr. Salmona speak to it and see what he has to say.
Oh, my finally got back.
I want to add too, I've called the office on several occasions for complaints at the back of the mall, and I've never gotten a response. Any kind of problems, especially for dumping, it's quite the dumping ground. But I say a lot of residents that don't even live in Mississauga, we watch them on the long weekends, it's hilarious. They're renovating houses and it ends up in those bins for the poor guys in the mall. I feel very sorry for them because they're paying for it. But, okay, you go ahead.
As we said from the number one, this plaza was built a long time ago. As you can see, this is the present condition of the back. In fact, you're quite correct, and we illustrate it's a dump. It really is bad. So what we're trying to do with our drawings, and Jeff, maybe you can bring the drawing again to show the back of the plaza. We're trying to make it more humane. We're trying to make it. The issue at the moment that you're talking, I was there the other day, just 2 days ago, took these photos to illustrate this. This is what you're facing there. Yes. And what we're trying to do, we're trying to make it more pleasant to park, walk through, the walkway. That was the idea. You know, today we do not design plaza that way. There is the only service lane at the back. That was not the way that this plaza was built. It was 50, 60 years ago. So what we're saying is we're simply trying to make it more habitable. Less of no man's land as it is at the moment. As you can see, at the moment, can you take that off?
I can't see.
At the moment, I was run over while I was taking photos with cars parking driving from A to B. So what we're trying to do, as you can see, we put some parking. The parking is there anyway. The people always park there.
No, you can't. It's illegal to park there. You get ticketed. You cannot park at the back of the mall. No, not the way you have it towards the houses. No, no one can park there.
That's the application.
It's called a fire route.
No, it's not fire route. I'm sorry.
There's two. Have you seen? I don't see them there. I didn't look that close. Like I didn't get that close. But there are fire hydrants back there. Just to let you know. And I'd like the fire department to be able to put my house out in case anything happens. So I don't know. Okay, carry on.
Madame, we're doing our best to make it more humane, as you can see. That's our goal and that's our attempt.
But how about safe?
Yes, I don't think it's safe. Also, another thing, have you noticed that most seniors that come from up here, actually in this vicinity, walk here? Right? So now you've got even more people because you say you're going to make a walkway through there. So now you have more traffic where I just think that's unsafe, I think. a lot of people here I do recognize from walking through there because I walk there every day and it's not safe. It's also not cleared by some snow. The city's here, and I'd like them to know that too.
In terms of the condition in the back, one of the things we can look at through the site plan process is fencing along the rear property line, landscaping along the rear property line, and the way lighting is dealt with.
Well, again,
Okay,
that's
so
my concern.
dealing with
24
aesthetics-
hours lighting, so I have like in my backyard on a nice Friday night.
There are different ways to deal with lighting. We can often deal with lighting at a lower level, use shields so that it casts only in one direction kind of thing, so it doesn't cast in the direction of the homes and things like that. And that's something that we can explore through the site plan process, putting in these appropriate elements to support this revision to the plan.
So in other words, we're stuck with that parking, we're still going to put lighting, it's still going to be a disaster for the residents that live on Henley Road. Are our taxes going to change because of what your convenience you're putting us through? I doubt it.
Can I say something? I've been in that area for 44 years, and they used to be parking right along there. Because at the church, Agnes, you will remember, we used to park there, and we were told we couldn't park there anymore, and they cut it out. But they used to be parking there for years and years and years.
At the church. The church is on Sunday in the morning, not at midnight.
No, but I'm telling you, all week long.
Okay, I'm not going to argue. If nobody agrees with me, I'll go away.
Let's see if I can get this to stay standing for a while. I guess a few comments and maybe a couple questions here. I was at the Monday meeting. Sorry, I was standing too much. So I guess a couple comments and some questions at the end. I was at the Monday session, so I did see the difference of the plans. I heard a lot of the comments that were raised. There were some comments made about not having a public meeting before, and I guess I'd like to point out that this is our public meeting, and thank you for that. This is our chance to so we might as well use it, and I think we are. With regards to what's been done on the plan, I think it addresses a lot of the comments that were heard, so I think that's great. As far as I could see in the original application, there were really only two zoning OPA type issues, or major ones on the table. One was the auto use, which we've spoken about why that's being redesignated, and the other one was really more related to parking. Parking's been mentioned, but I think the removal of those buildings, by its nature, actually likely increases the parking ratio quite a bit over what was being requested. Whether or not all of the spaces are needed at the back, again, a lot of these things are site plan items. I recognize that, and the councillor had noted before that he encouraged the community to get involved and form a committee to participate during the site plan process. So that is not a required part of the site plan process, but is that being offered to us? And if so, then I think as a community we should engage in that and take our opportunity to address the details at that stage. With regards to the general overall, I've lived in the area for about 9 years. I view this plaza as an absolute anchor to the community. I think it's important for the city and the developer to hear and appreciate that we believe that this should stay as a neighborhood commercial plaza. And I will say this, I'm encouraged to see that the main tenant wants to invest in the property in some form or fashion. I think that gives legitimacy to the rest of the plaza for a good 15 to 20 years while they recuperate their investment. Now, whether or not this ends up being the exact form of the building, I understand is probably still going to happen in the site plan. And that ties to my first question. The zoning that's been put on right now is about removing the auto use, and I recognize that that's required if the plan is in this form. Let's say a scenario comes up where the plan is not in this form, where there is still space for the auto techs. And the auto techs that we've spoken to earlier is a great part of the community. A lot of people here use their services. If you change the underlying zoning and OP designation, they will be an illegal use on the site, despite the fact that the grocery store isn't built. So I guess my question is, and I'm glad that you're shaking your head. If that's the scenario, is there an ability for them to stay? If that's not the scenario, is there an ability to layer a permitted use somewhere on the parcel to say 3,000 square foot max auto use can be permitted somewhere on the land as long as it doesn't exceed a maximum square footage?
So, to answer the first part of your question first, should the official plan designation and zoning category change from the motor vehicle commercial to the neighborhood commercial, auto techs in its current building would continue to be a permitted use as a legal non-conforming use. So they were established legally under a zoning that no longer exists, but they continue to maintain that permission and they can continue to operate legally within that facility. Now, in regard to the second component, there are mechanisms by which the amendment could be modified to do that kind of thing. We would need to look very closely at compatibility issues. Locating it elsewhere, there may be compatibility issues because it is an auto repair facility. There's equipment that generates noise and other things that add to the incompatibility. We would have to look at those elements to make sure that they're appropriately mitigated for those uses that are immediately surrounding a location. You know, my initial blush is to think that you need to identify an appropriate location to do that kind of thing. But honestly, you'd have to look at the details of it and figure out the best way to deal with it.
I appreciate that. When speaking about location, again, we already have an auto-oriented commercial in the other corner. Putting that or giving a designation on the opposite corner would really not change the character of that corner from what it is today. And again, I think we can speak to the way that Autotex keeps their shop. It's a very clean shop. It was a matter of, I recognize it's atypical to put an auto use inside a neighborhood. They're generally directed to industrial areas and sorts of places. But if the community itself actually says, we don't mind this being here, we would encourage it, and they're able to produce a list saying so, is that something the city entertains and keeping on parcel?
Well, at the end of the day, we have a request for a change in land use by the property owner. So that is, we're responding to that request. So the property owner would have to be a participant in that kind of thing, you know, in order for that to take form.
Okay, that's good to answer my question. So it would have to be the property owner that would put that forward as part of the application. Okay, again, I think just us as a community, we need to participate in the site plan, and a lot of these little questions we have about lighting, fencing, screening, landscaping, parking, that's when it all gets addressed, and we'll take our opportunity.
Hello, my name is Bruce Anderson. I'm a resident of Applewood Acres since 2000, so I've been here 12 years anyway now. One thing I'm struck by through these meetings, I attended the City Hall meeting last week, is that the landowner does not have the interest of the community at all close to the heart. I'm not an architect. I'm not an urban planner. However, I am a member of the executive of the Homeowners Association, and we got our hands on some drawings back at the beginning of May that showed 2 freestanding structures in the parking lot, no pass-through, problems with the parking in the back, and we just brainstormed among ourselves, and we said the exact same thing. Knock out the video store, put in a pass-through. Why is it that we're seeing these continual changes without any real thought about the big picture and what should be done for the people that this is supposed to benefit? When I really get down to it, I don't think that there's been really, up till now, the interests of the community taken at heart here. I hear that you're making changes, and I appreciate that, and I do appreciate that we're having this discussion here today. I feel that the landowner adhered to the old maxim, never let a crisis go to waste. I can't get through the heritage designation of this plaza. My prime tenant's
You want me to write a number for you?
I'm going to put the squeeze on the city, and we're going to knock this thing down and make the biggest grocery store we can get to keep Metro happy. And while we're at it, Let's do another drawing. 2 weeks later for the City Hall session, now we got 3 freestanding structures. And like I said in the meeting, I think it's all a bargaining ploy. I don't think that third structure was ever in the game at all. I think it was to really use that as a negotiating strategy. And now it's off the table. And the second one's off the table, but we still got a parking problem here. You have made appearances at the plaza, but I don't think you've really gotten the feel of what's changed the dynamics of that TD bank going in there. My wife, before we were at the City Hall session, she said, you know, Bruce, we were over at the plaza on Saturday. This is like, I guess, just before like the 26th, I guess it was. Parking was incredibly bad. And the problem is that TD Bank, it never should have been there. And we as a community, we found that you could have you could have made it happen if you parked it in the corner where the floor or the flower store is, the nursery, and we have the Christmas trees. It would be our loss, of course, but it would have been the smart thing to do, because that sitting in the middle, you cannot park with a Metro store the size that it is now. What we're talking about here is building a regional Metro store. The crowds are going to be a lot larger. A lot larger. So right now...
Yeah, bring it out.
They can't park here.
I've got it.
They have to park over here, now. And when we have it now, we have parking back here. That's gone. That parking is gone.
And we're going to add a lot of handicap parking because we asked for it. Why wasn't it there in the first place? Where are the cart corrals that we were asking at the City Hall meeting? I don't know if they're in there somewhere now. But you guys are rolling with the punches here, and I really wonder is there anybody that's really looking at the big picture? And I'm glad you're talking about having community input, because we have to get directly involved with these discussions, because they're just flying by the seat of their pants right now. I gotta tell you. I am open to taking part in those discussions, those meetings, and I'm sure we're going to find many other people that are willing to do this. So I just want to say to everybody, let's stay engaged, step up, and put in your time, and let's provide some direction to these professionals.
It's Bruce, right? Is it Bruce? You put a lot forward, and I'm going to try my best to respond to most of that. You mentioned the changing of drawings or the revisions which you've seen. That's the name of the game here. We put forward proposals which are comprised of many drawings: site plan, landscape plan, site grading plan, site servicing plan. So without getting very technical about it, the first submission which I put forward was commented on in a 30 or 50-page report by city staff. It's then incumbent upon me to change those plans and address the issues which are brought forward by the city. So this is also speaking to the concern from one gentleman last Monday, the 28th, about why the sign on the property does not look like this right now. The reason for that is, well, the city asked us to change it. So we went through 2 circulations of plans for the OP and rezoning. During that time, we also broke off the TD Bank site plan application. I'm going to address your comments on that as well. That TD Bank application went through 6 separate drawing circulations itself. Now, why is the TD Bank where it is? The location that we originally proposed, and John, you can confirm this, was much different. What some may not be aware is that you have 3 massive hydroelectrical easements which run through the site. And those easements, I believe, are still active. They used to come from the Lakeview Generating Station. These easements carry hundreds of thousands of volts of electricity. You cannot build a building on top of them. You can't build a building on top of an easement of any kind. An easement is a legal covenant which restricts land use, and it has various legal ramifications tied to it. This bank is actually located, and I'm not sure if it shows on our...
Right down there.
No, it doesn't actually, but I can provide a survey to you if you would like to see the location of it. It was actually quite a tedious thing. So the revisions that you see here are simply in response to your concerns, which I believe is what you're asking for, is it not?
Where was the TD Bank going to be the first time around?
The TD Bank was asked to be located closer to the street.
Still in the middle.
In keeping with...
You would have eliminated a few bike racks and some grass and then sidewalk, I guess, yeah. But it didn't... We're talking about the traffic flows have changed fundamentally.
There's also the phased redevelopment scheme to keep in mind, and I'll be the first to admit, I just came from the plaza. It's not ideal. However, through the detailed drawing review, we would expect, given your comments and also what the staff from the city would be looking for regardless, that we would embark on a phased redevelopment which would address some of the safety concerns as well as vehicular circulation concerns. The way in which it happens isn't ideal, but it's also reality.
At the end of the day, you're paid by the landowner. The landowner does not have our interests in mind. You follow your orders because they're paying your check, and I respect that absolutely.
I'm paid by the landlord, not the landowner. To this direction.
I didn't introduce myself when I spoke previously. My name is Agnes Patterson. I've been a resident of Applewood since '69, so a year or two. And I would like to speak to the safety of the plaza as it is now. I see on your drawings you've got a couple of speed bumps. Are they still called speed bumps or something else? At any rate, you've got a walk-through. Is that blue? Is that a walk-through?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. But there is nothing from the plaza sidewalk to the TD. My concern is safety now. Safety for people transferring from the sidewalk to the TD. Let me tell you of an experience I just had. It was last Thursday. It was mid-morning. I had to go to the TD. I saw my path clear to the island of grass, which is just north of the TD building, and went to go across to the TD, and
down there.
Lo and behold, there's this red car coming hell-bent for leather through the drive-thru at me. And I looked after. I'll get to that later. At any rate, he was most upset that I was in his way, and I jumped back. And then he made a U-turn to go in and park at the TD building. I thought, good grief, what is going on? He said, no, you go. I said, no, I'm not going. You park your damn car, and then I'll know where you are. So I looked at the building, and I said, wow. Okay, there's a little sign that says TD drive-through. Doesn't say enter here or leave here. It just says TD drive-through. There's no indication on the road which way they're to go into that. I mean, logically you think it's the driver that's going to use the window, but that's not necessarily so. I mean, this red guy was coming the other way. And there's a restriction bar that only so high trucks can go in through there. But there's nothing to indicate this is the way you should go. There's no arrows on the
Wayfinding for both vehicles and pedestrians is certainly something that we will be looking at through the site plan process with the city.
Well, I think that along with, I was able to jump out and get out of his way, landed in the lily garden, but I just think that there are older people, the people that built the TD Bank and the plaza, and those are the people that have to get from the home care center to the TD. They park, there's a couple places there, and I've seen so many near accidents. I'm hoping your speed bumps are going to be effective, but I don't know. but it needs to be done now. I don't know, will this be 2 years in the making, 3 years, 5 years?
It's already been stated that we have a timeline that's ticking down. So by September 30th, an approval that puts us in building permit over the winter and then potentially construction starting next spring.
Okay, so it will be a couple of years yet by the time it's finished, more or less.
Yes.
So, meantime, we have to get to the TD Bank if we're going to do banking there. I really would like that safety feature looked at. And now, what else? Yeah, I think that's my main concern for myself and others.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Dave Cardinal. I live just across the street from Agnes Patterson, so I'm another Stanfield person. I've been in Applewood for about 20 years, and I think my subject sort of relates to her subject. It's mostly safety. As everybody here knows, when your car breaks down, usually you're on foot. And what they don't know is that there's a lot of traffic. There's a lot of ways to get run over. One of them is anything where you're crossing the Queensway. Even with all these elaborate lights, people are turning right and they just don't expect a pedestrian. Now, when my car breaks down, no problem. I can walk to Autotex, walk back from Autotex, and I think all my neighbors are in the same boat. So it's also a safety issue. So all I'm doing here is putting a little spoke for Autotex because they seem to be in just a tiny bit of jeopardy when they move you from one zoning to, oh yeah, you can stay there, but you're permitted to be there illegally if I follow the... But as I said, I just want to make sure everybody realizes that around here, at least I really appreciate them, and they've really, maybe in a literal sense, they're a lifesaver for all I know. Maybe that's why I haven't been run over by them. Anyways, the other little question, sorry, I don't mean to drag this out, but generally speaking, have you done a traffic study, especially with what kind of truck is going to be running down Stanfield Road past the people on Stanfield? Are we going to have a load delivery truck sweeping past us?
I'm going to get Steve up here to respond. He's our traffic guy. He'll do a better job on that.
As I mentioned before, we do have operations people responding to the May 31st suggestion, or May 28th suggestion that there is an issue on Stanfield, so we are looking into that. There's a traffic impact study that was also done as part of this application that Jeff spoke to. I think if you want some details on that, you can speak to Jeff afterwards. I don't think you want to hear those right now, but there is a traffic study that's required as part of this application.
I'm going to kind of piggyback onto what the gentleman was saying before. The trucks that are coming in are going to go on Stanfield. They're going to go in opposite Russet Road. That's a pathway that the children take to go to school. So we have that issue right there. How are these children going to go over to the schools that are on the opposite side of the highway, having to walk by tractor trailers? Secondly, what about the noise and the disturbance to the residents that live right off of that, and I happen to be one of them? What's going to be done there?
The incompatibility of the loading operations and single-family residential is something that was a huge issue, which was discussed in the interim between the first circulation and the revised plans. And the Metro has agreed to install an L-shaped loading dock, which is actually enclosed. So in addition to, sorry, I shouldn't say in addition to, we're made to produce a noise and vibration study, which studies the impact of stationary refrigeration equipment on single-family residential, and it was determined that that would be unacceptable, such that an enclosed loading dock would be provided for. In terms of why the entrance was located where it is, John, perhaps you can shed some light on why that was tabled as a compromise. I know that there's certainly provisions for locating access directly across from one another to increase efficiency, hence aligning with Russet Road. but I'm unaware as to why that was the city's preferred method of dealing with that issue.
I'm going to try to tackle that one a little bit. A lot of it has to do with the positioning of the store, with the positioning of the Stanfield and Service Road intersection, and truck turning accommodation. And I think in order to get trucks in and out of there with some order of semblance, or semblance of order, the access needed to be relocated from where it is now because of the way the store is proposed to shift. And access, we thought, would be best opposite Russet Road. Now, if that doesn't work, we'll look at other opportunities or look at other access potential locations. At this point, that's what was recommended. Obviously, we're getting a little bit of pushback from the community in that regard, and we'll certainly look at other options. But we are somewhat limited because of truck turning capabilities or accommodation.
Wonderful.
Gee, thanks.
Is the northeast entrance that we come in to the back of the plaza, is that still open?
Yes.
Yeah, sure it is.
They're proposing to retain it open, and in terms of restrictions, they're proposing to put a height limit bar on it so that large trucks cannot exit and enter through that.
Okay, I want to just point out that there, at the moment, there are 4 entrances to the plaza on the North Service Road. There's one that goes in between Autotex that we park behind Metro right now, plus the one right in front of Metro, plus the one right, so there's one there, there, so there's 4. And now you're reducing that to 2. My concern, given the problems of turning, especially left, onto the North Service Road, the traffic backed up into the plaza will be very difficult. So I would...
Going eastbound?
Eastbound.
Going eastbound?
Eastbound.
Turn left into the plaza.
Yeah.
Well, no, you're turning out of the plaza.
Getting out or getting in?
Out of the plaza.
Okay. I'm just asking.
But into, yes, out of the plaza, yeah. That's going to be difficult. And so another point, I was very disappointed to hear our Councillor Tovey say that that the heritage designation was not important. I've actually lived in Mississauga in Applewood Acres for 60 years, and that entrance is the hallmark of the plaza for me. Many other things have changed, and that hasn't. So I hope that in this new design that there will be some recognition of that front.
Yeah, just to be clear, I didn't say that I didn't think it was important.
That's what
I'd actually been on this is my 3rd term on the Heritage Advisory Committee. I'm a very, very large supporter of heritage.
Well, Mississauga supports heritage until the developers come.
Well, I don't think that's true, actually.
I think it is.
Yes, it is.
That's been my experience.
That would be a side conversation that I would enjoy having with you.
But the front of the building is important to me and maybe to others, and I hope that there'll be some retention of that in the new.
Yeah, well, we haven't. The motion does not preclude doing anything like preserving any of the facade. To your point.
Okay.
So it doesn't preclude it, but it became a very simple question. Do you want to have the front facade of the building saved in an empty mall, or do you want to have a grocery store? That was really my decision.
Hi, my name's Donna Klotch, and I'm a tenant in Applewood Plaza. I think I might be the longest standing tenant. We need this Metro store, or a grocery store of some concerns. I've lived in Applewood for over 30 years myself, and if I backed onto the plaza, or if I was on Stanfield, I'd be concerned too, and I hope that we've all heard that you're listening to us and you're listening to people, that you don't want a railroad, that we want to do whatever it is that they need and to make it happen, because we don't want to lose this plaza. People want to shop in their community. They don't want to drive to Sherwood, Big Box, or anything like that. And this is what Applewood was built for in 1954, and this is where we want it to be going forward. And the tenants are not going to survive in this plaza if we don't have a reputable anchor like the Metro. And I might be the only tenant that actually knows the management office, because I've been here so long, and I know he is very, very committed to this proposal, and he wants, the landowners want this, they want to keep it as a plaza, they don't want to put condos on the property, they want to keep it the way it is. And with the Walmart being built on the Dundas, and a Walmart being considered for the Lakeshore, a lot of other grocery chain stores are not interested in this property anymore. Metro is our biggest chance, and they're going to leave us in September if we can't get this through. So my question is, what can we take from this meeting now? Like, what is the next steps? What are the next steps going to be so that we can keep track of it?
I think that's actually a pretty good segue. We may just do a couple more questions and then break off into informal talks. But as far as next steps go, we're going to be around for a little bit more. See Lynn. Lynn, stand up, say wave hi to everybody. Lynn's my executive assistant. Lynn actually just lives at Dixie and Lakeshore, so she's not a neighborhood person. We need some people to sign up to this committee. Like I said, there's not only this issue, there's West Acres Pool, and we need some help with that as well. So the next steps would be that we form a committee. I would certainly, that very well spoken lady, if you would sit on the committee, that would be wonderful, because I'd like to have a tenant, at least one tenant from the mall, and the lady who lives behind the plaza, I'd like, if she has some time, that would be great. And anyone else who's interested in working in a cooperative way, in a proactive way with the ward office, so that we can start making save this and make some improvements to West Acres Pool while we're at it. There's another issue that's going to be coming up as well, which is of course the bicycle bridge, because we're just in the process of doing an engineering report on the bicycle bridge, and to me that's another key thing that so these are all things that we can work on together, and we can get a lot of things accomplished. So next steps would be to thank you all for coming, and please see myself or Lynn sign up for our neighborhood steering committee, and the staff will be around for another 20 minutes, and the proponents, so you can have a closer look at the drawings and they can answer any questions for you. Is that reasonable? Does that make sense? So we'll take 3 questions and then we'll go.
Okay. My name is Nancy Gibbons, and I have lived in Applewood Acres most of my life. My parents bought in 1953, and I remember the place when there was no plaza. I just want to address something that hasn't been mentioned, that was mentioned at the meeting last Monday at City Hall. And I've been very pleased to see the response, that people have been really trying to listen. And this, however, this hasn't been reiterated tonight. There are 3 businesses. Autotech has been mentioned. But last Monday, 2 other businesses were mentioned that will really be impacted by the lack of parking behind the building at the east end. And that is the laundromat and the karate studio. The karate studio gentleman was there and told what a difference it would make not to have parking there. Imagine, if you will, just going back to the laundromat, that you want to do your laundry, and currently there are designated parking spaces for you, and you can walk in from the back with your laundry and walk back to your car with your laundry. How many people are going to want to park at the front or the back, halfway down the plaza, cart their dirty laundry in a basket to go to the laundromat all that way and go back? I think, and the karate studio, the question was about parents picking up children and dropping off children, that it was not going to be convenient. I support Metro, I shop at Metro, I am grateful to have the great plaza that we have now, and I would not like to lose Metro. However, I feel compelled to ask, how big does it have to be viable as an expanded store, and can you put on your creative hats and find a way to help these people at the east end of the plaza who are going to be negatively impacted by the lack of parking at the back?
But the animal hospital at the east end of the plaza has been there for 19 years, and we would like to continue to be there, but it's very difficult for people to bring sick pets in if they have nowhere to park.
Hey, my name is Richard Boyd. I got a question of the traffic guy. Stanfield Road, North Service, you can't get an 18-wheeler around there. It's a 53-foot truck. How are you going to get around the corner? Do you guys bring like vehicles there? Have you been to this mall? Yeah. How are you going to do this? Trucks can't do this. S-turn and stuff like that. There's no way they can do this to the corner. It's a 3-lane road, turning lane. I can get a pickup around there. That's it.
When these access locations are reviewed, they use truck turning templates, and that's how they determine. Do we bring trucks out there? No, but we do use the turning templates. That's an accepted practice.
So have you? Yeah, bring the truck. Have you driven this road like in your own car?
Yes.
Okay, so when there's a...
I live in the neighborhood, as a matter of fact.
There's a 3-lane road there.
Yes.
Getting around that corner is not easy sometimes.
That's correct.
So what are we going to do with the truck?
Well, that's why they had suggested that the access come on to opposite Russet Road on the Stanfield because of the turning difficulty.
Okay, so he's going to go down Russet?
No.
Or is he going to come up North Service and go up Stanfield?
It's going to come out, if the proposal is to have him come out opposite Russet Road and go down to the service road.
Right. So how's he going to get up there?
Well, the truck turning templates say that the truck can work. Now, it'll have to encroach on the opposite lane, of course. But
across the 3 lanes?
So how safe is
yeah, of
that?
course. And that's why you have a traffic signal there, so the truck will be able to do that.
So that's going to be safe?
Well, it happens everywhere in the city.
So the kids walking across, you know?
Wait, hold on. Now you're kind of getting exaggerated here. A truck or any vehicle will turn on a green light or on a red if they, if the coast is clear. But of course, pedestrians have a right of way, and of course they have to accommodate pedestrians first.
Hi everybody, I'm Audrey Lill, President of the Homeowners Association. Thanks for coming out tonight. Question, I guess maybe John can help me with this. The community was never informed of the freestanding TD building. Is there any mandatory information that the city has to provide us?
The TD building is a permitted use under the current zoning. So no land use change permissions were necessary. It was accommodated under a site plan application and a building permit. There's no requirement or call under the Planning Act, the legislation that we work under, to call for a public meeting.
Fantastic. What guarantee do we have that later on down the road, 5-10 years from now, that those 2 freestanding buildings that you're removing today won't just pop back up somehow?
There's 2 things I put forward, and one is that the existing zoning on the property has a maximum gross floor area size restriction. So that, depending on how large they would be, that would cap how much gross floor area could be accommodated on the site. The other thing is we referenced the parking justification report. One of the typical recommendations of the parking justification report is limitations on gross floor area. So if somebody's asking to reduce the parking standard as it applies to the site, it acknowledges that there's a limitation. So they may not be able to have additional square footage on the site without running into issues with parking. So if they put the additional building on the site, it would take up parking spaces, and then the supply, the standard used to calculate the supply would be modified, so they would no longer conform to the zoning. So since we haven't finished our review of the parking justification report, we don't know whether there's going to be a need for such a cap. but it may be a part of any recommendations that would be made to council, and we'll have to inform about that at the supplementary meeting in front of the Planning and Development Committee.
Thank you, John. Is there any guarantee that this will never happen down the road? Like, and again, since we don't have to be informed, that...
Well, if the zoning change included a cap, then they couldn't do a site plan application alone. It wouldn't be permitted. However, if there is no cap, then it would be permitted, and they could do a site plan and building permit without further public consultation, yes.
Thanks, John. The next question is from Councillor Tovey. I showed up a couple minutes late. I'm trying to understand, do you want to create a community focus group? Correct. We have one. It's called the Homeowners Association. It's been around for over 20 years. We're a very strong and active community, and all we want to do is participate with our elected officials, and I think we can work it out and stay in touch and, move forward on this project. Yeah, we're going to do that. There are other people. There are a lot of other different stakeholders, and we want to make sure that they're all included. There's people that rent in the plaza. There's people that live behind the plaza that aren't members of the Homeowners Association, and a few other people that are in the neighborhood that don't belong to the Homeowners Association. So that's what we're going to do. Just trying to understand again, will you be communicating with the Homeowners Association from here on out, notifying us of any changes? Again, we weren't given any information about the plaza up until the information coming in the Mississauga News. And again, we had discussions, Councillor, over the years, and you assured me that whenever the plan got to a point that it should be brought to the community, that we would go forward. And unfortunately, your response was that you didn't know, but you've been in discussions with the proponent and staff for 2 years, and we just want to be a part of the process, that's all. Mr. Lill, I think your personal feelings about me are very, very well known.
It's our community.
Councillor Tovey, I have nothing but the utmost respect for the office of the councillor, okay, of Ward 1. I've worked with Carmen Corbison in the past and other councillors I've had discussions with. All I want to do is have a nice, open, transparent type of process here that the community is constantly involved and informed. That's all. That's exactly what we're doing now. So
I'd like to say something here. John Spence, I've lived on Greenhurst Avenue for almost 50 years. I grew up with this plaza. I know every issue tonight is a personal issue. My emotional side doesn't like to see auto text go, but my practical and common sense side says we need this plaza. Get on the committee and have your say.
Perfect.
This is something that I think has been needed for many, many years.
That's great. Thank you very much. So we're just going to break off into the informals now. And if anyone would like to sit on the committee, just come and see Len and I, and we'll get you signed up. Thank you very much for coming.